Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for day 12 of the 12 days of Litmus. And I think this time of the year, it's always a good time to start thinking about the next year. I'm a big believer in setting goals because it gives you some point to aim for, if nothing else. And even if you don't get to your goal, the thing is you should look back introspectively and think, where would you have been without setting the goal at all? And for myself, I know that that normally leads to some type of otherworldly malaise where I just am not very productive. And I just bit and piece things together. So for me, setting goals is absolutely a necessary part of progress. So this final day of Litmus, I'd like to go over 5 writer goals, 5 reader goals, and 5 Booktube goals for the upcoming year 2018. And my first writer goal, for the 5 writer goals, my first writer goal is I want to get back to publishing. I haven't even dedicated time to submissions for 3 years now. And that really sort of takes you out of any chance you have at all of making a name for yourself in the literary world. So I would like to submit 400 pieces. This sounds very ambitious, but when you think about it, a lot of the places that you'd be submitting poetry, you're submitting somewhere between 3 and 6 pieces. So it will take diligence, but there will be, you're submitting multiple places, multiple pieces, multiple places, and it really sort of racks up fast if you stay on top of things. Second, 24 short stories. Now what I'm doing here is sort of, there's 12 months in the year. I want to write 2 short stories a month. So that's sort of the way that I'm looking at that. Short stories are really, as a writer, sort of my staple with things. And I even have a flash fiction goal of 36 flash fictions on the year. So really, it's more work than it sounds, because you're delineating things like that, plus a poetry goal, plus my next goal here is I want to write 2 novels, and I am not a novel writer. I am not a novelist. So that is going to take a lot of concerted effort on my behalf to try and sit down and focus in on this, because when I get itchy when I spend too much time with one project. So it's hard for me to really hone in and focus on it, because I enjoy short stories, I enjoy flash fictions, I enjoy poetry, and when I'm writing a novel, it really sort of distracts me to start writing those other things. So eventually I quit writing a novel because the urge to write poetry and short stories and flash fictions becomes overwhelming. But I really like to sit down and nail out 2 first draft novels this year. Moving forward from that, 1 screenplay. I'd like to write in more than just the paper type fictions. Writing a screenplay, I think, would be a lot of. I'm strong with dialogue anyway. It's one of my strengths as a writer. So I think that it would help me to really make that craft better, as well as maybe make me look at things in a different manner, because I am very sparse with my words as far as being a writer, especially when I get into novel formats. And when you conceptualize a screenplay, I think that while and whereas you are not writing the fiction of the thing, you were forced to visualize it in a way that sometimes the visualization does not come with writing fiction. So I think that it would help me develop those skills. And finally, my 5th writer goal is I want to post 12 blog posts. Now that sounds sparse. That does not sound like a very big deal, but what that would mean for me is to get back into the world of blogging, which I used to do. I do not anymore. I did it straight out of my master's degree. I did some blogging, but I would really like to get back to that and sync it up with the channel to some extent. Now, moving on, 5 reader goals. I want to read 50 books. Now, there's a lot of you to whom that sounds like a ridiculously low number. That is not a ridiculously low number for me. I am an incredibly slow reader, but I think what it also does is that it allows me to sort of think about the literature that I'm reading in a way that if I were to set the goal at like 100, I'd have to just zoom through things and I wouldn't be able to digest them in the way that I like to do. So 50 books for me would be about the right amount. You're a little less than one a week, right? Finished. So that's really the goal that I think I'm going to stick with as far as numbers on reading actual books. Because, like I say, it sets the pace pretty well for me. Inside that, I would like to read the entire Flannery O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor is a writer who, every time I read a piece, I am completely taken aback, and for whatever reason, I have never made the dedication to go through the entire canon, and I think this is the year I'm going to do that. Also, I think I'm going to make an attempt again to read. I've never made it all the way through a Bible. I would like to read the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran. Because that is something that would give me a stronger base from which to have those discussions, something that I do not necessarily have at this point. I like most people who are not overtly religious, I have read swaths of the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, but I have never made it through the whole thing, and I've never touched a Quran. So it would be interesting for me to see how that literature goes and the differences there. And it's nice to have, it would be nice to have that entire plethora of experience with those books from which to start those conversations. Also, I would like to finish a Harold Bloom book. I have never made it all the way through a Harold Bloom book. I've probably bit and pieced my way through all of them. Through the two that I have and that I do make a chore to myself to read from, but I don't know that I know that I have never picked one up and read it front to back, and that is something that I definitely need to do. And I would also like to, my fifth and final reader goal, read 5 literary criticism books, which is again not a great big number, but for myself, what I do sometimes with that type of book is I race through it too fast, and I know I miss the nuance of many, many, many arguments. So I think that it would be fruitful for me as a reader, as a writer, and on the channel to pick 5 literary criticism type books and really hammer them out and take a toothbrush to fine detail them. 5 Booktube goals. 1, I want to get back to doing book reviews. I've not done those on this channel in a very long time. I've done one this year on Jen's collection of poetry, and even then that was the first collection of poetry that I had ever done a review on, as opposed to a poem that I've done a review on. So it was difficult for me to really sort of wrap my mind around it. But really, I want to get back to doing novel reviews, and I would like to sort of change the way that I do those. I am not sure what that means at this point, but I would like to make them a larger scale production, if that makes any sense. I would like to bring some more outside things into them. Yeah, it's just a matter of time, right? The second goal for Booktube that I have for this year is I would like to start doing small documentaries. Not a great big production, but something that just sort of sets an outline for who a writer is. I've got some ideas on that. I've got a list of writers that I would like to do that for. Right now, the biggest struggle for me, besides time, is figuring out the editing software, trying to understand how those things work, because again, I am not a technology person. Another goal for Booktube, pardon me, I would like to do 50 poetry discussion videos. This is not 50 poetry reviews. It's a little bit different. In my poetry discussion videos, I don't really go into the fine details of a poem as much as I sort of take an idea from the poem and try to go with it. And I think for me, those are some of the more fun videos to do on this channel, so I would like to get into doing, basically that's one a week of those, because I think that would be, I think that having fun with the videos is something that comes across. Another Booktube goal for the year, I want to finish with that damn Potter boy. I want to be done with Harry Potter so I can move on and start tearing apart bits of other things, ruining other people's childhoods besides just Potterheads. If anyone has any suggestions for where to go after Harry Potter, I want to have a series that is dedicated to sort of young adult literature or something along those lines, where we go chapter by chapter through it, just like we've done with Harry Potter. And finally, this final goal that I have for the video is something that before I had my channel, whenever I saw a YouTuber sort of mention something like this, I would cringe because it felt dirty, but the more I think about it, the more I understand, because the goal is I want to have 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2018. And really, it sounds like a selfish goal, it sounds like a petty thing, but for me, what it comes down to more than anything is it's about the discussion. It's about the community. I really enjoy interacting in the comment section. Sometimes I do get a bit behind, I understand that. But it's always interesting for me to get ideas from people about literature when I do review things, or hear their input on a poetry, on a poem when I do a poetry discussion, something that they had maybe thought of in a different way, shed some different light on, or even if it's in the Harry Potter series. It is interesting for me to get all of these different interactions with people for whom Harry Potter meant so much, and seeing it in a new light as they're an adult. So growing this community to 5,000 subscribers as opposed to where I'm at now makes a lot of sense for other voices coming into these channels of communication. So that is my final goal for this video. I'll say it again, this has been so much fun just watching everyone participate in this, and hearing everyone's stories with literature, hearing everyone have to hunker down on their favorites and defend them, hearing everyone's quotes, just everything along the way has been so much fun that I can't communicate thank yous enough to people who have participated and people who have commented on my videos and shared little bits and pieces about themselves as well. So while and whereas this is the end of the Litmus, 12 Days of Litmus journey, I hope to see you in the comment section and see your videos in the future about other things as well.